Hey there, stars! It's been a bit since I talked about the Bumblebee movie Starscream. I was a little disappointed at the time. However, after getting the new Core Class Starscream for Christmas, I took the opportunity to reevaluate the B-movie Starscream mold. So with that said, Tiv here, we're going to be talking about the recent studio series Core Class Bumblebee, movie Starscream, which is a mouthful to say, and a second look at his Voyager counterpart. Now, starting with our Core Class Friends aesthetics, they're a bit simplified and toned down, but for the size, it's understandable. And it makes a relatively faithful recreation of his robot mode designed from the Bumblebee movie. I like how the null rays are just molded in on this version, as opposed to the constantly unpegging from the wings due to being loose, which was the biggest issue I had with both versions of the Voyager mold. While he doesn't have a waist, that's usually pretty difficult to engineer in at such a small scale, so I forgive it. Meanwhile, with the Voyager counterpart, it's spot on to the film. Though I do still agree with my assessment that this Starscream design really does lean more into the Air Commander archetype of the character as opposed to the more schemy and backstabby one. That's honestly still the case for the Core Class one. Now, let's move on to the articulation. Now, Core Starscream has some really solid leg articulation. Great rotation there. He's got great rotation at the knees too, thanks to using a ball joint. And he's got some really decent rotation in his feet thanks to that mushroom peg down there. He's got ball jointed arms and elbows, and some minor wing articulation too. He's really pretty solid all around. But the head articulation is super tight. Regardless, you can get him into some really solid poses. Now for the Voyager Starscream, he does got a bit more foot articulation with that ankle tilt there. Still feels a little disappointing though. But the knee is really solid along with the thigh swivel, and the waist is much more accommodating than I gave it credit for before. Still not the best, but I like it. The arms are still a little weird to pose, and I wish those shoulder pauldrons were a bit more like the Core Class counterpart. This one also has much more wing articulation, which is great for expressiveness that only Cybertronians have. And he's got really solid head articulation because of the ball joint there. Overall, my only complaint is just how much the red bit gets in the way of the waist when it feels like it should just be like a little ornament on top of the waist. It's like a cod piece, you know? Honestly, I can't really remember why I dislike this guy so much. I actually rather enjoy the take on the mold as Thrust. Of course, that may have been my bias towards repurposing Thrust as everyone's favorite gender-fluid seeker, Acid Storm. Now, normally I wouldn't do size comparisons, but it's a new year, so might as well experiment with the format a little before we get to the transformation. In which case, here's Core Class Screamer with a G1 Minibot, with a Power of the Prime's Prime Master, with a Tiny Godzilla, with a BotBot, Steve from Accounting, a Diaclone Man, a LEGO Microfighter, a Unicron Trilogy Scout, a Movie 2 Scout, a New Age Legend Scale, a Modern Generations Core Class, and a Megablox ODST. And here's the Voyager mold, next to each other with a T-30 Voyager, with a horrifying flesh chariot, with a Power of the Primes Voyager, with a modern mainline Voyager, with its Core Class counterpart, with Godzilla, and with a used bottle of airbrush medium. Now, Core Starscream's transformation is smooth as butter, assuming you remember anyway. And it's pretty satisfying to do, making him a pretty effective desk toy. The Voyager is still more complex, but not as unfun as I made it out to be in the original review. In fact, I feel like I could just sit there and transform back and forth, just for hours. Both jet modes are honestly the absolute best recreations of the movie jet form you can get at their scale. But I do still honestly just have a little bit more fun with the core classes. Without the huge undercarriage of the Voyager, it's a much more compact little jet. And for the vehicle mode comparisons, here we have the core class Screamer with a G1 Minibot, with Lushy! With a Mega Bloks ODST, with a Cybertron Scout class figure, with a Hot Wheels car, with a modern Micromaster, with a Power of the Primes Prime Master, with a tiny Godzilla, with a modern core class figure from the main line, with a Lego Microfighter, with a full bottle, with a Battle Master, with a New Age Legends figure face front on his face, with a Diaclone Man that I couldn't be bothered to transform, with a Leader Class Dragon Megatron. And here's the Voyager with the core class, with its mold mate, with a Power of the Primes Voyager that I couldn't be bothered to transform, so he's face down on his face, with a Thrilling 30 Voyager, with a modern Voyager, with a Horrifying Flesh Chariot, and an empty bottle of Airbrush Medium. And not to mention, Godzilla. So overall, I would say that the core class Screamer is a solid figure, and it really does make me hope that this isn't the last gaps of the breath for the core class line, even if all of the writing is kind of on the wall there. As for the Voyager, though, I honestly underappreciated it, and I can't entirely figure out why I had such a hard time with the transformation and posing in the past. His biggest sin can be more or less fixed with some varnish or nail polish. So ultimately, how are they? Well, the Voyager is a fantastic toy and a fantastic representation of the screen model, even if the vehicle mode is a bit difficult to have stand on its own. But if the loose null rays and the waist being limited by the red codpiece are too much for you, that's fine. There are plenty of Tetrajets in the sea if you need a Cybertronian Starscream in your collection. You should probably get them out of the sea. Stop polluting the ocean with Tetrajets. The core class, on the other hand, is an utter delight for around 10 USD. And if you want a tiny Space Starscream as a fun desk toy, I really can't recommend him enough. But you know, that's all for now. Remember, you're all absolute stars, and I'll see you next time on the other side. It's not as good as the Voyagers, but it's still there. Now, Core Stars. Jesus Christ. Regardless, you can still get him to some really solid transformation mushroom peg down there. He's got Age Legend scale figure, a Modern Generations core class, and a Mega Bloks OGs. Now, normally I wouldn't do size comparisons, but, might as well experiment a little. So, here's Core Class Screamer with a G1 Minibot, Power of the Prime's Flash Chariot, a Power of the Prime's Voyager, a modern mainline Voyager. Fuck. Codpiece are too much for you? That's fine. There are plenty of Tetra jets in the sea if you need a Cybertronian Starscream in your collection. You should probably get them out of the sea, honestly. That's not where toys go. Stop aiding in pollution.